Sahana Vavatu, Sahanao Bhunaktu, Sahaviryan Karawavahe, Tejasvina Vadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Krishna has started out in verse 11 by pointing out that human beings undergo generally two kinds of situations in life. The first one is situational. So there are things that throw us off, and we need to come back to our normal self, to our composure, and we need to do what has to be done. The second one is more fundamental. So after going through life, you come to see that what you're really seeking for is permanent fulfillment, and you don't really want to be this, person who has to kind of just keep on attending situations after situations, and you say, is this all there is to it? Just attending to one more thing in my life. And you come to see that there is much more than doing all of that. So you want to recognize what is a higher truth in this world, and what is the purpose in this world to be lived. What is it to be known? What is the highest thing to be known, and what is the highest way to be lived? So you want to naturally investigate this. And as you move through the world keeps on reminding you that not in one moment are you ever completely quite fulfilled, because everything will bring you some level of limitations, some level of pleasure, some level of pain, and kind of just transient. It comes, it goes. Sometimes it's lovely. Next year, your whole year is very different than the last year before, and you want to recognize how do I become happy? How do I be happy, content throughout all of these happenings in the world, which are normal. Everyone has these things to go through. And so you want to address this fundamental issue. And this is why Krishna firstly answers the fundamental issue to Arjuna, because Arjuna has asked two kinds of questions. And in fact, I have asked these questions for your homework, if you remember, and we haven't had a chance to answer that, but it should become evident now why Krishna has attended to the second question, which is more fundamental. And the reason is, no matter what Krishna says, it's going to help Arjuna, but Arjuna is going to still, even if he wins the war, he's not going to kind of feel satisfied with himself or what he's done. And he's still going to question what is the aftermath of all of this, and what happens now. And now all my kingdom is lost, my family is gone, the society has been tormented, has been destroyed. And he's going to still walk away with this notion that things are incomplete. So he goes back to the subject. Arjuna is going to say, I am not happy. So Krishna wants to address that. Krishna already sees that ahead of time. So he says, okay, so what would have to happen so that Arjuna recognizes that he is much more than his body and his mind, his thoughts, and his cousins are not just cousins. They are the Atman. And Bhishma and Drona, they're not just Bhishma and Drona, they are Atman. And the same Atman Arjuna also enjoys right now. So Krishna wants to bring out the fundamental first. And he says in verse 11, Panditaha na anushochanti. He says the pandits, the wise people, we will also call them jnanis or jivan muktas, they do not grieve. And the reason why they do not grieve, not as in apathetic or cold, is because they recognize this very truth, that their Atman is their real nature. And the bodies that I see are just incidental. They've been coming and going for eons, and they will continue to come and go on for eons, including your body right now. So Krishna wants to bring this forward, and he says that to understand how this Atman is you, he brings an inquiry, and he says that there is something about you that throughout all of the phenomena and all of the situational things that happen in your life, there is a unchanging presence which never sort of wavers. It never goes through sickness, it never gets ill, it never gets confused, it never gets really more knowledgeable. And you say, what do you mean he doesn't get more knowledgeable? Of course he does. And then Krishna says, well, that's not Atman. That is the mind that gets more knowledgeable, or your mind gets more dull through periods of time. So Krishna wants to make it very clear that Atman is not your mental state of mind, because state of minds are meant to, right, fluctuate. That is what the nature of the mind is. It's made to, sort of give you new inputs. And the truth of this Atman is it's an awareful presence. It is that which in the presence of awareness, there is a thoughtful person. There is a sometimes less than thoughtful person. There is a painful person. There is a joyful person. There is all sorts of roles get played in the presence of this one awareness. And we can all relate to this in some way or the other, because that is your truth, which is why if I say the word awareness or consciousness, you're relating to it some way, even if you don't quite connect. And it's such a big thing. This reality is such a, a huge, goes over my head. Even then, most will sit down and listen because it's talking to you. It's not talking to some Mr. Philip. Who's Mr. Philip? I don't know who he is. I'm talking to you, to your real nature. This is why we are somehow able to keep on persisting and persisting, because I'm looking for that presence which never wavers, which never gets ill, which never gets ignorant, which never gets contaminated by all of the, all of the things in your life that are going on. And that's all belonging to the person. And this awareness throws light. If it were to have an occupation, if awareness were to go up to you and say, I have an occupation, and you say, what is your occupation? Awareness would say, my only occupation is to throw light. I just throw light on phenomena. That's all I do. Not that I do it, it's just by my mere presence, right? The light is thrown by my mere presence. The light is thrown on both ignorance and on knowledge. In other words, your ignorance, your mind's ignorance has nothing to do with you. It belongs to your mind. The knowledge about what your mind knows, what it doesn't know, what it knows, it has nothing to do with you, the awareful being. Your only job, in the presence of you, knowledge and ignorance are shunned. They come to light. They are revealed for what they are. So therefore, to understand this deeper, Krishna then uses one more analogy, and he says that this very awareness is not something that is restricted to one particular body. It is like an analogy. We call this, in Sanskrit, upamana. There are 6 means of knowledge, and the third one is upamana. Upamana simply means comparison or analogies. So when we say that Atma is like space, we don't mean to say that Atma equals space. We're just equating it provisionally to help you grasp, because Atman is, you can't grasp it. You can't, can't kind of objectify it. You can't make it into an image. So we have to give you something that is closest thing to Atman, but is not Atman. So in that sense, we use comparison means of knowledge called upamana, comparison. And we say that Atman is like space. So it is all pervasive, like space. And when a body gets born in space, then, right, the same space that was there all along and was always there, it was never born and it will never end. But what happens in this space is new bodies get born. And in this very short period of time in history, your body happened to be born. And my body happened to be born. And when it was born, what happened was I am everywhere. I was everywhere. I am everywhere. All the time, never not anywhere. I am all there is right now. But when the body gets born in me, in one space, then it seems automatically that I am now as though contaminated, or I am bound by the boundaries of one single cup. And so because nobody told me that I am much more than just this cup, then naturally you and I take me, the identity, the space, take me as this much. But in actuality, me is all that is here. It is the whole thing. So in this sense, Krishna wants to show you that this Atman is not just one single I am. It is really just everywhere right now, but it seems like it is where your body is located simply because there happens to be a body born which is enclosing, as though enclosing this one awareness. Now, to understand a little bit more, what about everything else? Because so far we're talking about this one Atman, but then what about forms and what about rocks and what about space and what about time and what about elements and what about your physical body? What about your thoughts? So you also have to address that. Because if we take that out of the equation, then we're not living the vision of oneness. You're living the vision of two-ness. In other words, you're accepting I am Atman, but everything else is not me. So you have to eventually collapse that understanding, because it's not true understanding. It is only provisional. And what I mean by provisional is there's a common thing at the beginning where we say, I am self and everything else is not self. Atman, Anatman, which we kind of heard before. So this Anatman is actually nothing but Atman. Okay? Now, to understand this, we have to go through a Satya Mithya Pramana. And what this involves is coming to see that your body, the rocks, the thoughts, the air, the fire, the water, right? The food, the taste, everything is, in Krishna's words, called asat. Now, we use the better word than asat. We said it is mithya, which means it is dependent. It has no existence without something else. So in other words, it only exists as long as something else is there. Now, I have to discover what that something else is. If I don't, then what happens? Your focus remains on mithya. So this means you have no choice but to give the product, the final object, its reality, which is why in the spiritual world, when somebody has a spiritual awakening, what happens? They write a book about it, and it becomes the final thing. It becomes, hey, I've had an experience and that's it. I got enlightened. So you see what happened? They took one single mithya experience and they make a huge deal out of it. Why? Because satya mithya is missing. So you have to analyze every one of your experiences and see that it all resolves into the very same awareness that was there before that experience came. And that awareness is the final reality. So whatever the person got is nothing special. It's absolutely nothing special. It's just one of the millions and trillions of experiences that people will keep on getting for eons. So to understand this, we say that every mithya depends on its satyam. It depends on its content. So if we take the pot, then we say that the pot, right, is mithya. Why is the pot mithya? Because without the clay, the pot has no reality. But then we say the clay is also, so in other words, now the pot is mithya and the clay becomes satyam. But now when we attack the clay, now the clay through analysis becomes also mithya and something else becomes satyam, like silica. So silica now becomes satyam. But when you attack the satyam through your inquiry, which is the silica, you see that silica also is mithya because it depends upon something else for its existence. So you keep on going like this, and eventually you always take anything in this universe, whether it's a pot, whether it's a rock, whether anything, you will always come to the exact same conclusion, and you will be able to reduce it ultimately to atoms. And when you look at the atoms, then you go into quantum physics and you go into particles, something even smaller. Now, what happens eventually is that you cannot find the final building block of this universe. At least quantum physics can't, science cannot. They just can't. All they have for now are hypotheses, are mathematical equations, are possibilities like string theory, if you've heard that before, but it is unproven. So what happens then is Vedanta comes in and it adds two more realities that are not available to science nor quantum physics, which is why we need Vedanta. Otherwise, if science was able to point these two realities, you don't need Vedanta. So the only reason why we need Vedanta is so that we can find the final building block where every mithya keeps on reducing to the final content, which cannot be further negated. It cannot be further reduced. And the final reality that it all comes to is consciousness. Because how can you reduce your consciousness? Try to reduce your awareness, please. So you're aware of these words. I want you to now reduce your awareness. I want you to split up your awareness right now. Come on. Divide your awareness. Come on, we're all smart. We can do this. Let's divide our awareness. The only thing that's going to happen is you will be awareing a mind. In the presence of you, there will be a mind that's desperately trying to reduce awareness. And who will be the knower of all of that? Awareness. In other words, you cannot reduce awareness no matter how hard you try. So this means that everything reduces ultimately into particles, and particles themselves cannot put themselves intelligently together unless they are in the presence of intelligence. In other words, what it all comes down to is mere concepts. Concept of a particle, concept of an atom, concept of a molecule, concept of silica, concept of clay, concept of pot. It is nothing but just concepts all around us. And when I say concepts, I don't mean mental concepts. I don't mean concepts in your mind, because then that becomes a different kind of thing called subjective idealism, where the world's only because my mind's alive. That's not what I'm talking about. What I mean concept is the blueprint from which or by which the smallest of the smallest gets assembled. And then that smallest, when it comes together, when particles come together, what happens? They create a brand new manifestation, which is atoms. And when atoms come together, they create a brand new manifestation, which is molecules. When molecules come together, they create a brand new manifestation, which was not there at the level of the molecule, nor there at the level of the atom, nor there at the level of the particle. And what kind of manifestation? It is clay. Okay? So like this, if you try to reduce anything, you ultimately come into concepts. So while an ordinary person sees this as a pot, what does a wise person see this as? Or understand, not see, but understand this as, cognitively understand this as?
Clay.
Clay. And a wise person then will go deeper. What is the ultimate reducible reality to which the wise person will understand this reduces to? Concept.
Would it be pure? I was going to say pure existence.
Okay, good. So in other words, because, right, so intelligence, in other words, right, intelligence from which the smallest of the smallest particle comes. And this intelligence, this concept or blueprint cannot be outside a conscious, existent, awareful being. And that conscious, existent, awareful being, when I say being, I don't mean a being with a form. I mean infinite being, a limitless being. Cannot be outside a conscious, awareful being, because how can you intelligently put together anything unless there is consciousness of intelligence? Can intelligence put anything if it's in a state of inertia, if it's inert, if it's not pervaded by consciousness? For example, a person is in a coma. They're not conscious, so they could have all of the knowledge in the world. They could be the smartest person, but that knowledge is useless. That means their knowledge to understand things, to put things together, is useless without consciousness pervading their brain. So in that same way, intelligence can never be outside an awareful, existent being. And that awareful, existent being is known to you right now and to me right now as a self-evident I am, I am, I am. Okay, Amol, and then we will continue.
Hi, and just a quick question on now this clay pot, we break it down, we split it down, you go to silica, atoms, molecules, particle level. But when it comes to manas or chitta or buddhi,
Yeah.
how do we apply that there or break it down?
Sure. Okay. So same thing. So your thought is right dependent upon time, is dependent upon um right, where was your thought before it came, right? So your thoughts are also matter. They're just a different kind of matter, what we call subtle matter. And subtle matter doesn't have any weight. It's not pulled down by gravity. It's not, you can't measure the weight of your thought, but you can measure the weight of your hand. So your thought is also exactly the same, but think about your thoughts like this. Can you have a thought unless you're there? Can a thought exist unless you, the conscious being, are there to know about the thought? In other words, there has to be a knower of the thought, right? There has to be a knower. Someone has to, someone has to know about the thought. Who is that someone or something? I am, right? Now, whatever you want to call that I am, it's called Atman, a conscious, awareful being. So even thought itself depends upon an awareful, conscious being for its presence. All right, now one more thing I want to say is that now when we think about this a little bit, then what happens is now that I've understood that everything in the universe through a satya mithya relationship reduces into mere concepts. Even a thought is just a concept, but you know they're there. Why do you know they're there? Because there's a conscious presence that is in the presence of whom the emotions are revealed for what they are. Now, when you reduce everything into Sat and Chit, what you discover is that I no longer look at myself as one single effect in this universe, but rather your focus, your cognitive understanding of yourself changes to the cause, because everything reduces into one single cause, which is Sat and Chit. For example, if you look at the wave, right, what does the wave have to do to bring out the water? Does the wave have to, right, go and go somewhere and meet and shake hands with the water? Or does it just have to bring out through being told about the water and seeing its relationship to the water? In other words, the wave doesn't have to, the jiva doesn't have to, right, discard itself, just has to understand everything about me as a jiva, as a person, as this thinker, as this enjoyer, as this person who worries, as this person who's concerned. Everything about it ultimately reduces into concepts, which reduces into sat and chit. So this means that the only thing that water, for example, has to do, it has to bring one more reality without getting rid of itself. So this means you don't have to get rid of anything. You know, in the spiritual journey, we often think, oh, I have to, get rid of my ego. I have to get rid of this. I have to get rid of that. It's all about getting rid of things. But please think about this right now. If everything is perfect, everything is fine right now. Suppose everything's fine right now. Then do I have to get rid of anything if everything's okay right now? To get rid of anything, including the ego, what are you saying? Things are not okay right now. That means something went wrong. That means I have to get rid of, but how can you get rid of anything if everything is already as it is? Everything's already one reality, one cause right now, appearing as the ego, appearing as the person, appearing as a thought, appearing as this computer, appearing as your phone, appearing as an emotion, appearing as a thought, appearing as a concern, which will appear tomorrow when tomorrow comes, which has appeared as yesterday, which is no longer with us today. One reality is taking on different appearances, and yet I want to get rid of the appearances. And yet, wherever there's an appearance, wherever there's mithya, wherever there's a pot, that's exactly where satyam is. So now, where's the question of, and why would you want to get rid of anything? So rather than this idea of getting rid of things, destroying the ahamkara, you're simply seeing it all is reducible to the final reality, which is known to you right now as self-evident I am.
Yeah, I had a question. It's kind of an extension of what Amal was saying. Is it at all helpful to, if we're, I think he was suggesting things like your thought processes and things like that. Is it at all beneficial to consider your unraveling thoughts, your emotions and things like that as Maya coming into, existence, like going from potential to manifest?
We haven't spoken about, I'm intentionally withholding some teachings because I want us to try to understand this without depending on all of these Vedantic words. I just want us to just think a little bit differently. So yes, see, I will definitely have that. I will definitely say that later on. But for now, I don't want to say that because, right, I want us to think outside these Vedantic terms.
Okay.
So for now, I'm just going to say that a thought is just one of the manifestations of this one cause. So this cause has the potential to manifest forms.
Yeah.
Just like, for example, a dreamer, okay? A dreamer has the potential to manifest the world, the entire world of forms, for example. And this potential is amazing. It's so convincing. It manifests characters and you cry and then you wake up, right? It's totally afraid of that you got shot, or, sometimes you wake up afraid, or you're a hero or a villain in your dream. So yeah, there is this incredible power in you to manifest a world. And this power, right, manifests as, a thought, manifests as a mountain, manifests as air that you breathe right now, manifests as space, manifests as fire, manifests as 10,000 different things. But does it actually contaminate? Do any of those things come onto you? Do any of those things, like a mountain, do you wake up with a mountain implanted in your mind from then on? Do you have like a mountain on you? Does it actually contaminate that conscious being that pervades the entire dream? It doesn't. So the conscious being, right, despite having this power to manifest these forms, which are very convincing, and the story and the drama and time and space and all of these things get manifested out of your own power. And then you, right, the conscious being, are inside one body, inside the dream, and you go, oh, I need that. I want her. I want him. I want that to be happy. So this means that even though you are everything in that dream, you are the mountain, you're the character, you are the awareness of that dream, everything. You're not only the awareness of that dream, you're also the forms. That means the forms have no reality without you. And of course, and then upon waking, in one instant, all of those forms, which were so real, so convincing, you started World War III. That's how convincing it was. You were a politician, you were this, you were that, you were a student, you were a teacher, and everyone had aspirations in this dream to be someone, to go somewhere, to do something, so many things to do in so little time. This is the words of the dreamer. And you're running this show for eons, right? Eons, millennia after millennia, the show has been going on. And the whole thing has just been one you from whom this world of potential, of forms and emotion and thoughts and concerns and joys, all of the, and love and happiness, the whole play on the stage has been nothing but you. And then the dream guru comes over to you and he says, I just want to point out something here for a moment. Before you get so entangled in this dream, I want to let you know there's one more thing here that you have been missing out. And this one more thing is this awareful being that is known to you right now as I am. And this I am that is known to everyone, even the person who's never heard of Vedanta, this I am happens to be the final truth into which everything reduces. This whole dream of mountains and forms and thoughts and everything, and drama and love and hate, all of that reduces into one conscious being.
Yeah, and so just a quick follow-up, and maybe this is also similar, it might be jumping ahead too far, but we refer to the final Satcham as I am. It's known to us as I am. Traditionally or conventionally, when you think of I am, you're thinking about this individual jiva. Like you're kind of internalizing this feeling of,
yeah,
I am a person, or I am a jiva.
Yeah.
But are we right in thinking that the I am is not that, but it's everything?
Yeah, so in other words, we bring to help that. It's a good question. It's the unverbalized I am. It's the unverbalized I. It's the unobjectifiable amness. It's your amness. It's your existence. It's just that it's the presence in whom a person now is talking, called Andre, and person called Michael is talking. It's just the presence. Call it whatever you want. It is that unverbalized, unspoken presence. So you can't verbal. If I say I am, I don't need to keep on saying I am. Even if I don't say it, I still know that I am. I still know that I exist, and there is an awareful being. So it is that unverbalized, unspoken, awareful being, which we refer to as I am. Yeah. And now the question is then why, if it's so evident, then why is our focus on anything other than I am? Why do we even turn this unverbalized I am into some kind of a thought, into some kind of a personality, into some kind of a role? Why do we do this?
Is it because we haven't, because it is I am is everything, or I am is fundamental, that we just automatically put it into everything? Is that kind of how it works?
It's taken for granted. Yeah, you're more or less correct. It's taken for granted. Our focus is constantly on the forms. Our focus is on the personality. Our focus is on, my thoughts, my emotions, me, my this, my that. Okay, so the focus is constantly on these mithya forms that are coming and going all day long, all year long. So the person naturally gets concerned about it. Every thought becomes such a big deal. Look at this. One thought comes. Conventionally, what do we do? One thought comes. Thought has come. Let's look into it. Important. Every thought is so important. No. This thought is very important. No, never mind those thoughts. This is the thought to attack. This is the thought to look into. Come on. You see how it is? So look at this. Even though it is so easy to recognize this reality, at the same time, it is the hardest thing ever. Because for the longest amount of time, our focus was on these forms, and we were looking at ourselves as one wave amongst many other waves. And I have to polish up my wave. I have to put makeup on my wave, which is also made out of water. I have to speak, special words. I have to appear in a certain way. I have to be somebody. I have to have a certificate. I have to have a title in front of my waveness. Never mind waveness. Now it becomes Mr. Wave, Mrs. Wave, right? Dr. Wave. Wow. And I stand out amongst all these other waves. So you see where we're operating from. A small person who has to attach so many roles onto oneself just to come out of this sense of smallness, because there's this sense that I am small. I don't like feeling small, and I have to do something desperately to come out of this smallness. And so then we start this journey of going out there and being someone and being seen and being validated. Please validate me. Please validate my existence. Please acknowledge me that I am smart. Acknowledge me that I'm really, really working hard to figure this out. Please give me some attention. Look at this. This is all coming from that single individual who is desperately looking for love, looking for attention, looking for validation, looking to be seen, looking to be heard, looking to belong somewhere, looking to be part of something. Why? Because I am not part of something. I am part of this much, one wave. That much I'm part of. So the wave has to slowly release this holding on to its identity as one little thing amongst many, because Krishna understood this way before the war began, And he wants to point this to Arjuna. You need to release this identity, taking yourself as this being who needs, I need, this pot needs, I need. No, I don't care about you. I care about me. I need. No, I need. No, I need. No, love me. Okay, I will love you. Oh, now we feel good. But the reality is both of them are in one space. And that space is awareness. That awareness is like that space. And that space, that awareness illumines the thoughts, the needs, and the concerns of both of these jivas. Okay, Harris, and then Asha, and then Vijay.
Yeah, sure. So I have a question. It's a practical question.
Mhm.
Suppose as a Vedanti, myself and I try to always discern between the mind and body. If by mind, like by thought, I want to be free free from the duality.
Yeah.
But the mind and the body is attached to the external factors, like because the mind is a form of a lot of thoughts and pictures, and the body, since it is made from the earth and the other elements, and it is attracted to its own nature. So how does as a Vedanti, like how to overcome these struggles, or it is better to be submissive and accept that it comes and goes? Which is the best way?
It's a good question. What we're talking about, Haris, is maturity of the mind. And the mind, like I said, spends so much time on its own nature of food and pleasing itself and getting qualifications and being heard and being seen in this universe, in this world. And it's so used to this. But equally, like when you were a child, right? The mind had a whole different set of interests, like toys. Were you not capable of releasing or relieving yourself from those toys? Of course you did, right? We all went past those toys. So now, suppose a parent, child comes up to the parent and starts to talk about the toys. Is the parent going to criticize the child for being immature? No. The parent understands the child is where the child's at. Eventually, Ishvara will show you something, will show you circumstances, and by doing so, you will come to see that it cannot really give you what you really are seeking. It can give you a little bit, but it cannot give you what you really stand for. So your standard starts to increase more and more and more. And eventually, you come to a place and you start to say, the mind and the body has its need for survival. We get that. It experiences fear, which is fine. It experiences love, which is fine. Let it be. But at the same time, I use this body, being blessed, to discover my real nature. So in that sense, body no longer becomes a burden. It becomes a mere blessing. It becomes your greatest gift if you use it for what it was meant for, and that is to discover your reality, which is past this body, which is not bound to this body, which is unborn, which will never die. So like this, little by little, we don't need to put pressure on others or, whatever they're at. Where the person's at is where they're at. I have no right to, give them, a big mouthful. No, stop looking at these toys. There's nothing for you. In fact, the irony is you have to go out into the world, some of us, and accomplish and be successful to recognize there is not, that it has its place, but it's not really what I want. You have to do it. So now suppose I say, stop doing this, just focus on self-knowledge, and all of this is just, fleeting and it has no place. This is destructive. It's like telling the child you're immature for playing with these toys. The irony is you will damage them if you do that. So this means we let people be where they're at. This is, kshantihi, accommodation, the basis of Vedanta. Accommodation means I understand everyone's where they're at, and I have no right to force anyone to speed up their journey. It's only going to create more resistance and more resentment And they will ironically end up sticking even deeper to what they're doing right now. So all you can do is just be an example, focus on what needs to be done, and others will, through your example, capture your inspiration, and they will slowly start to maybe shift, you don't know, maybe shift their, their perspective. So this means thoughts are okay. Now any kind of thoughts, that's fine, but you also have to look at your thoughts and reframe your thoughts, because what happens is we keep on playing what kind of story? The story of yesterday. And yesterday, what kind of story were we playing? The story of 2 days ago. So this means that I have to intentionally, deliberately intercept that pattern every single time that thought, that old story of judgment, of labeling, of I need, I want this, this is important. You have to deliberately intercept it, because as we said, you've been playing this program for the longest time possible. And because it's become so normal, it becomes the normal thing. So you don't suspect it of being the real obstacle to your progression. So this means I have to intercept it deliberately and say, hey, is this really serving my larger vision? Is this really serving my larger purpose? If yes, wonderful. If no, then the question is, what now? What next? What slight adjustment can I make in me to look at this in a more holistic way, to see the network of causes and effect, rather than just they're a bad person. Oh, look, they're doing that. What a fool. This is how the mind is. It's so superficial. It stops at first try, it stops. But in your words, you said Vedantin. In fact, we don't say Vedanta because Vedanta is just understanding what is. So we don't kind of give that a label. But a wise person understands this, whoever they are helplessly acting out of pain, as we said last week. And when a person acts out of pain, they will hurt other people. They will say certain things. They will have certain thoughts. And you just happen to be related to that person. So now it also affects you. And now you have to find a way. How do I protect myself? Because I can't just, kind of come out. I have to protect myself. So this means it really goes back onto what can I do to protect myself, and how do I retain my composure and my mind in a relatively healthy state of mind, so that I don't get kind of influenced by all of these toys and things that people are, doing nowadays.
So that the feeling of being I'm not feeling low about oneself. Is that the word paricheda in Sanskritam?
Not feeling low about oneself. So not, not
in your earlier example, like, I'm not feeling full, or that wave about the wave. So is that same thing as what is paricheda?
Yeah.
The
So
word?
I'm not so sure about 100% about this word, but I think I get.
Okay.
I think I get the idea. So in other words, on one hand, don't discard it. Like, oh, it's just a person, right? Who cares? It's just an upadi. It's just a superimposition that's having its own needs. There is a person that has to be addressed. But as I said, Vedanta is not about dismissing anything. It's just addressing what needs to be addressed and putting it in its right place. There is a jiva, there is a person who has a need for validation. Fine. So we're not saying, oh, you're supposed to feel guilty now. Is that what I'm trying to do? Make you feel guilty? Oh, I had this need for validation and attention yesterday. Oh, I feel guilty. No. Let the jiva look for its little things that it needs for its own fulfillment. Let that be. That's probably never going to end. So now, suppose someone says to you, a wise person has no, validation and attention. They don't look for it. And you're like, oh my God, I have like basic needs to be hugged. I have basic needs to be talked to. I have basic needs to talk to a friend. And now you're saying this wise person doesn't need any of that. This is destructive. Okay. So again, this is not what we're saying. Just question it. Where is this need coming from? Right. And is this need for feeling small, and sometimes, sometimes the person loves to feel small and, and in their little bubble. Oh, let me just feel like a little small person. Let me go inside my little cave. The cave, person goes in their little man, woman cave, and they actually enjoy it. And then you question yourself, what am I getting out of this cave? Actually, nothing. It's just a temporary respite. It's not really giving you anything. So again, we're not saying totally discard it. We're also saying, not saying, just totally, be submissive to it. Question it. Simply ask questions. What am I getting out of this? What do I want out of this experience? What is this need for seeking giving me? Which part of me is looking for this? Do I really need this, right? This for my survival? Do I really need this other person? Ultimately, no. Everyone is expendable, believe it or not. Everyone is expendable. This means that you can go without anyone. How do you know? Because there was once a time when you didn't know your lover. Were you okay before you knew your lover? You were totally fine. And when the lover comes into our life, suddenly, oh, I need them. I can't live without them. They're the love of my life. Oh, look at this. So I'm not saying now, discard lover. I'm just saying question, where is this irrational thing coming from? Okay? You were totally fine before. You are still fine now. But at the same time, acknowledge it's impossible to be totally detached from your spouse or your child. It's impossible. Don't even try. But I can look at it in a proper light. I can just see it. Yes, there is an attachment, but at the same time, there is much more to this son or daughter or father or mother of mine than just this relationship that we have. This relationship is incidental. It came as a result of this jiva being born. But it is not the final truth of this mom or dad, which I call mom and dad. It's not the final truth. There's much more to this person. Their real nature is Atman, which is also my real nature. They were never born and I was never born. We are one and the same. So there's something that is exactly the same between us. I am. But what's different? The body, the personality, the life, the age, the features, all of that. So you're not discarding. You're also not completely, going above it. You're not going into it completely. You're just putting things in the right place.
Yeah, Andre, when you mentioned everything, the thought, body, everything is happening in that existence, the I am. At an individual level, that I am makes sense. Yes, you are beyond all this body and this form and all. But when you talk about the infinite time I am, in which everyone's thoughts, everyone's body, everything is that, that's something little difficult to comprehend, right?
Of course, of course. And okay, good. So you don't have to now, be where you're at. And I like that you're honest, actually. First of all, I love it. Honesty will go a long way. So Vijay is asking a question completely pertinent to where his mind's at. This is lovely. This is super punyam points for you. So this means that, right, if it's a little bit over the head, that's fine. Firstly, I acknowledge that's the case. Will that be the case tomorrow, next week, and so on? We don't know, but the teachings will slowly peel away layer by layer. And you will see that actually it's not about experiencing myself as everywhere, just cognitively understanding that even though I am as though confined, in actuality, I am not confined. Even though in the dream, I am as though confined to one person, one little character in that dream who's having a life that's assigned to them, who's got parents to them, who's got some friends, who's got some enemies. Even though it seems like I'm confined from the standpoint of the dream, in actuality, there's one total being, which is I am, which is known to every character in that dream as a conscious, awareful self. So this means that that character in the dream doesn't have to now go and, yeah, but this is too much over my head. And maybe they will do that. But slowly, you will come to, acknowledge that it's not a matter of experiencing myself everywhere. That's not going to happen as long as there is one character. So I can be okay with that. So in other words, you're being okay with the fact that I am is right here, but I am also everywhere. I'm okay with both. Okay. And that just takes a little bit of time.
Yeah. Just to add to that. So when I have that understanding or realization that I am and everything is happening in this I am, as an individual, not collective, then can I see all relationships that I have is something happening maybe at a body level, not at the I am level? Can that help us to maybe a little bit more detached with whatever is happening with me?
Good. So it's a provisional thing. It helps a lot to recognize that whatever is happening right now is happening to this person, to this, to this thoughts or playing out. There's desires now. They're belonging to this instrument called Vijay. Vijay happens to be associated to other characters also in this world. And there's just a whole play going on the stage. And it's one screen. And on the screen, I am the screen. And on the screen, and what does the screen do? Suppose the screen is light. So the screen just shines. That's all it does. And whatever pictures, like one of the pictures is Vijay, one of the pictures is Andre, right? Whatever pictures pop up on the screen, they are all illumined. They're all alive. Like, wow, I'm aware right now. But this awareness doesn't belong to this individual. It belongs to the total screen, which is lighting up everyone else's story on this play of life also.
Yeah, just taking forward Vijay's question, I also want to know, like what he said, if I want to say it in words like this phrase, I am Atma Brahma. I am Atma Brahma. So, up to I am Atma, there's a process of neti.
Yeah, okay.
Up to I am Atma. But after the Adhyarop Apavad thing, whatever, where do you get the process in Advaita Vedanta which gets you up to the Brahma part? I am Atma, there's the process. Okay. But I am Atma Brahma. I mean, the wave knows that I am water. But the wave to recognize that rest of the waves is me only, where is that process?
Okay, so again, we'll just simplify it, ordinary language. See, what is Atman? Atman is consciousness. One consciousness, okay? I'll use your language. One consciousness, which is everywhere, which is the reality of all things, we call Brahman. When that one consciousness pervades one single body, Gautam's body, then that same consciousness is called Atman. Okay? One consciousness, two different names from different standpoints. One consciousness, one content. So how can we maybe use an example? We'll call this, we'll use water. I think you use the water example. So total water, right? Total H2O we'll call Brahman. Okay, we'll call the total reality, which is of the existence, nature of existence and awareness. Okay, total water is Brahman. That water from the standpoint of the wave is called Atman. Is there any difference between the water of the wave and the water of the total? No. Then why do we have two different names? Just to show you that the I am who I think I am is not belonging to one single individual. It is the same I amness, the same content that is the truth of all of the waves in the entire ocean, of all forms, all emotions, all thoughts, all mountains, all stories, all time, past, present, and future. So in that sense, Atman is Brahman. Okay? Consciousness here, the content here that makes this individual is the same content that makes up the entire universe, that makes up everything.
Just one more doubt I have.
Okay.
See, where the struggle is real, I take you there. There is this process that, we have this Panchkosha Vichar and Drigdrisha Vivek, where we come and do Neti and come up to I am.
Okay.
But what you are saying is that everybody is the same I am. There is no, that process is not there in Advaita Vedanta. I mean, how what you are telling me, I am registering that. Intellectually, I am knowing that.
Yeah.
But, to come up with that vichara inside that, yes, I am everywhere. I am Atma. That there's a process. But is there any process to lead me further that you are also the same Atma? Intellectually knowing it though, but realization, how?
Yeah, sure. So we can make two statements, of course. Okay, so what Gautam wants is, he's asking about more methodologies to help him to accept this fact, accept this truth as what it is right now. So what he's asking is, you can make two statements right now. One of them is that my I am, my Sat and Chit, is different from your Sat and Chit, right? My I am is different from your I am. That's the first thing you can say. But the question is that really true? And I will get to that in a moment. The second thing you can say is that my Sat and Chit is exactly the same as your Sat and Chit. That's the true statement. But now, how do I prove that? That's what you're asking. So look at this. What is the nature of Atman? It is awareness. It is of existence. And what kind of existence? It's an awareful existence. To say that your existence awareness is different from my existence awareness, there is only one way you can make that statement: by attributing an attribute onto your existence awareness, by saying it is different from mine. Now, the moment you say it's different, I'm going to then counter that and say, in what way is it different? Give me an attribute or a feature, because to say something's different, what makes differences? Features. That means you have a feature that I don't have, and I have a feature that you don't have. That's the only way you can logically establish differences between two Atmans. So now the question is, what feature would you like to attribute to your awareness? Suppose you say, my awareness is doubtful. I have a doubtful awareness. Suppose you say that. To what does the doubt belong to? It belongs to an instrument called Gautam's mind. So that's not a feature of awareness. And I suppose I say my awareness is confident. You know, I'm confident, I'm relaxed. My awareness is relaxed. I've got a relaxed awareness. What is, okay, will I be relaxed tomorrow when my house burns down? Definitely not. Okay. So in other words, relaxed belongs to, again, your state of mind. It doesn't belong to the light which lights up relaxed. It doesn't belong to the light that lights up doubt. So this means that because I cannot attribute any possible attribute onto my awareness, and you can't put any attribute onto your awareness, which means what? My awareness is attribute free, and your awareness is attribute free. Therefore, how can you say it is different?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, Andre, maybe you'll probably come to this later. This is where we talk about the Vyavaharika and Pratibhasika and all, right? At some point.
Yeah, people love throwing words in this class. Okay.
No, I guess so. Okay.
Okay, now I'll go. Okay, I'll go with that. I'll go with that. What did you want to say about Vyavaharika and Pratibhasika? I kind of
This difference that we are seeing. Yes, awareness is the same, as you said. Awareness on which our mind, body, everything is playing. For each one is the same. It's attributeless.
Yeah.
But we see the differences maybe at one level of reality.
Yeah, at the level of the ocean, for example, the ocean is moving. That's the Vyavaharika. It's moving all the time.
That's where the difference. But beyond that, when we go, probably that difference is not there. That's where this journey is going towards, right? When we reach.
Love it. Beautiful. In other words, the relationship between what I see and the final reality, what kind of a relationship is it? It is a Satya Mithya relationship. So on one hand, I say that there are differences at the level of the pot. Or maybe another example, I was once at a beach, and there was a little girl who was building a castle, and she was so adamant about people not walking over it because there were adults nearby. So she was very like, don't touch my castle, and making sure that the water of the waves don't reach the castle. So she made a little bridge, you know, where the water can. I thought it was very cute. And you just look at this; it's a nice thing to watch. And so she's, you know, some fella who was not looking, and, you know, his leg kind of hit the side of the castle, and she was, you know, crying, went to her parents, and she was so disturbed by it. And I was like, wow, what an amazing show. Like, look at this. She's so concerned about this sand. Her creation is made out of sand. And yet you're like so much into the forms of and the differences in levels at the level of the name and form, right? It's one sand everywhere, so much sand, like so much sand on the beach. And yet I took this one sand and it's my creation. It's my life. I sculpted this one reality, the Sat-Chit into my life. Let me protect my life like that. So this means you let the child, right, do their little thing, but slowly you understand all that's happening is this one clay is being sculpted, one content is being sculpted into the person called Vijay, into Andre. And then on top of that, because we have a free ability to choose, ability to think, we may add more complexes onto it. So now look at this. You're born in this world. Did you choose to be born in this world and be wearing this body? Did you choose that? Did you like make a little agreement? I'm going to sign up. Yep, I'm going to have this kind of life. If you did, you would have selected a wonderful life for yourself. But none of us can testify to having a brilliant, a perfect life. None of us. So this means there is something about that you didn't choose. And because of that, you're here now. Now, when you came into this Vyavaharika world, this empirical world, what happened was, did you get told automatically who you were? The parents say, hey, by the way, there's something that's very much coming and going here, but there's one awareness about you, which is the witness of all of these changes, and that's the real you. Does anyone tell us this when we're small? No. So this means we get born in this world, in this body, and you're looking through this world and going, oh, there's a big world there, and I'm a small person, so now I have to go out there and get that for my happiness. That's a natural assumption. So this means you now make the Vyavaharika, the world of pot, real for you. And then the pots become important. And then on top of that, you build complexes. Oh, look at this. This person is empirically small. And then you add one more reality on top of that, pratibhasika, your subjectivity. You add your own opinions, what it means to be empirically small. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not pretty enough. I should have more. They have so much I don't have. So now, on top of this empirical person, you add one more complex, your own pratibhasika complex, and now where are you? You are 2 times removed from paramartika, the final reality. You are 2 times removed from the final reality. So what does Vedanta have to do? It says, hey, let's first address your pratibhasika, your own ideas, your own complexes that you have developed, that the world has given you, that the media has given you, that the parents have given you, that the religion has given you. Let's see through all of that. And when I see through all of that, that's stage 1. What do I come to? I come to the empirical world. Now I see Ishwara's world. I see, all that is here is not my little bubbles that I've been carrying around left and right. All that is here is Ishwara. And now when I see Ishwara's world, which is just concepts rearranging, reshuffling itself to appear as a tree, as cloud, as air, as joy, as love, just concepts, then I need Vedanta to inquire and ask one more question. What is the truth of Ishwara? What is the truth of this intelligence? And that truth is known to me right now as this I am. So this is the process of Vedanta. First, I go from pratibhasika, subjectivities. I have to relinquish all of those complexes that I've built. Then I come to see and appreciate God's world. All that is here is God. And then I have to ask one more question. If I don't ask this one more question, what happens? You end up being a bhakta. I am a small person, and I need to propitiate God and end up in Vrindavan, or heaven, one fine day, and sport with Krishna, with Jesus Christ, with whatever, Allah, with whoever it is, and I need to do the right thing on this world because I'm small and I'm different from the Lord. So this means now you again go somewhere else. You go on a different tangent altogether. And of course, you've got institutions that complement that kind of thinking, which is fine. Ultimately, I have to ask one more question. What is the difference and what is the same between me and Ishwara? What is the same between me and Ishvara? Okay, what is different? Can I say that I am all knowledge and all power that is manifest in this whole world? Absolutely not. What do you know? Okay, go fly an airplane. Go and speak Spanish. Oh, I don't know. Exactly. So this means I honestly acknowledge I don't know. But what is the same between me, whoever this me one, right? You don't even philosophize what me is. What is the same between me and Ishvara? Consciousness. One consciousness. And how is that consciousness known to me right now? Not as a belief, not as something to be gained after I die, some promised land. It is known to me right now as a awareful self, as this awareful conscious being. Simple as that. Now the equation has been completely closed. I have not denied the jiva. I have not denied Ishvara. I have not denied anything. What have I done? I put things cognitively in the right place. This is Vedanta. It doesn't exclude anything. It doesn't throw away anything. It simply says, hey, look at your jiva. Take care of your jiva. Take care of this person who may have needs. This will go for the rest of your life. Don't feel guilty about it, because we all come with scars. We all come with whose life was perfectly lovable, whose life was, you had all of the love in the world. You came with the most beautiful parents. You had all of the comforts in the world. Who came like this into the world? So this means there's nobody, right? So this is why we cannot be hard on ourselves and establish ourselves in this magical reality, because then what are you doing? You're going back into pratibhasika. So now the wise person now becomes another pratibhasika, and I live from that reality. But what do we just say? Step one, pop the pratibhasika bubble. So this is the process. Nagesh?
Yeah, it's something I'm stuck on. It could be just overthinking. But so in my direct experience, I know I am aware. But then when I look outside and I see everyone, I'm assuming everything else, all others are aware, but I don't know that you are aware. I don't know if I'm explaining myself right, but it's like, particularly like with AI and stuff, you can have a chat with a chatbot without realizing it, and they seem real, but they're not aware, that the chatbot's not aware. So how do I know all the people around me and everything is aware? I know I'm aware, but I don't know you're aware. You could just be a robot or something. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've been a secret robot. Sorry, everyone, to disappoint you. Only Nagesh is aware in this entire universe. It's a brilliant question. Very simple. How do you know I'm aware or conscious? Because if you weren't conscious, right, it would be like a coma. So consciousness makes the person dynamic, like bubbly, and they're able to respond to you. You're able to respond to me. And what's responding right now, Nagesh, is really this instrument. Instrument is responding right now. Andre is responding according to the knowledge in the brain. And right, the words were heard, they came through the ears, they vibrated the hair, electrical impulses, came inside the brain. That communicated with the mind. The mind accessed its memory of the English language. It thought about the question. So the whole thing was quite mechanical, actually, if you want to, really kind of, it's like a machine, basically, mechanical. So there's a whole mechanics of the individual, right? Memory and cognitive skills and emotions, all of this is just made to respond. But the knower of all of that, I know there is a knowing from this standpoint, there's a knowing that these words are coming right now, right? Someone knows, that's all I can say. Some being knows that this experience is going on. That being is the same being that knows that Nagesh, that you are having a conversation with me. So there's a knower. If there's one thing that I know for certain, there is a knower. Can we all agree on that? There is a knower. Somebody knows about this experience right now. Can we all shake hands just to help out Nagesh? There's a knower. Some being knows about this experience, right? Whatever you want to call it. That being is Atman. That being is also Atman from the standpoint of Nagesh. That existent, that awareful being is Atman. So summary, how do you know that everyone else is aware? Because we're responding to you. If I was not responding to you, then I would not be aware. So awareness makes this person respond. Now, somebody asked me a question, I know, Gautam. Who's the real knower? I think it was Vijay. And good, Gautam. So, okay. Atman is not, consciousness is not a knower, by the way. Sat and Chit is not a knower. It only takes a knower role when it penetrates the mind. So in reference to the mind, consciousness becomes a knower, because that's the job of the mind. It's to receive data and to respond. When a mind gets, right, as though born, like suppose a mind gets born for the first time. Suppose this is right, awareness, and now a mind gets born, and now who's the knower? Over here becomes a knower, right? One mind in association with awareness becomes a knower. Now, I know someone's going to probably throw a few more words. They're going to say, what about, look at this. Now, don't worry about these Sanskrit words. What do we have? Chitabhasa, reflected consciousness, pramata, right? You know, the knower. We don't need to talk about this yet. This will come later on. But because I know you want to kind of reconcile it all at once. You don't have to do that. Just keep it simple. If you want to simplify it, whoever the knower is the final reality. Is that complex? No. Whatever you want to call the knower, whoever knows about this experience, whatever you want to call it, it's not the buddhi, by the way. It is not the mind. It is not the subtle body. It is Atman. It is consciousness, which is the final reality. Let's keep it that simple. Let's do verse 17. And it's just going to expand more about this final reality, Atman. So let's see what it says about Atman. Avinashitu tad vidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyayasyasya na kaschit kartum arhati.
Know that by which this entire world is pervaded to be indeed indestructible. No one can bring about the destruction of that which does not change.
So Krishna here is speaking of Atman, and Atman is indestructible, he says, is immortal, it never dies. For example, the pot is subject to destruction, subject to change, but the clay, if this pot breaks into 1,000 pieces, the clay has not broken into 1,000 pieces. It is from the standpoint of the pot. Or, you know, the water, the wave can fall and crash onto the shore, and it's the end of the wave. So it's at the end of the name and form, but the water was there all along and still continues to be in the exact same state. Now, this is the reality. However, Arjuna is overwhelmed. Why? Because his focus is where? Yeah, now we know a little bit, right? His focus is on the form. So he thinks he's going to kill all of these variable bodies, because to Arjuna, these variable bodies are the final reality. I remember my mom, actually, my cousin died from cancer. And my mom calls me up and she's like so disturbed and distraught by this experience of my cousin dying, even though she only met him once, and maybe once or twice. And I was thinking, if you're that distraught over, someone that you don't really know that well, like I can only imagine what happens when the husband or the wife dies. It's in other words, right? This is what happens when our focus is so much like this is the person, this is the reality about this person. And this is Arjuna's exact state of condition. Like this is the teacher, the, Drona, the Bhishma, the Kauravas, and I don't want to kill these people. So he is now concerned about all of these castles that are built on the beach, and they're all made out of sand. But Arjuna's focus is on the different kinds of castles, and he doesn't want them to end because that's all he sees. So this means that you need a student, a particular kind of student, a master student, to be able to be a little bit uncomfortable and listen to the teaching, even if your mind is saying, this is not, how can you think like this? You're supposed to have, you're supposed to be so concerned, which is all fine. Which is why Vedanta takes us from comfort to discomfort. comfort to discomfort. And you will notice throughout this whole course, this is how the theme goes. There's a story of a frog, which was inside its well. And the well is very dark and it's comfortable for the frog. But the frog always saw the light on top of the well. And one moment, somebody reached over into the well and decided to give this frog an offer. And he said to the frog, "Hey, frog, I know you're very comfortable in this dark place, in your comfortable world. And I know you've been here for a long time. Do you want me to show you just for a moment this vast universe on top? Because I know you've been seeing this light. I want to show you this universe." And so the frog says, "Yeah, sure, I can see in the top. I can see what it's like." And he takes this frog out, and the frog is like, "Wow, it's so huge, such a big world." But the frog quickly realized it's too much to handle. It's too uncomfortable. It's too new. It's so different from the paradigm that the frog has been thinking of. And very quickly, the frog regresses and says, "Please put me back in my little world." And the kind gentleman says, "Okay, I will put you back as you requested in your little world." So this means that the frog, right, has this need to see the world, but its mind is not ready. So you need to take the frog out just for a few moments, not too long, and then you put the frog right back. And each time you take the frog out, you leave it out for a little bit longer. So like this, the frog is more and more comfortable with this new understanding of the world. So this is how the Gita works. It interchanges between comfort and discomfort.
Yeah, so I just have a question came to my mind when you were talking about the knower right now. So the experience you have, the first person experience, is it that the consciousness or makes you aware, but that experience is actually experienced through mind? I mean, is it the mind which experiences it, but it's through consciousness, but consciousness itself doesn't experience anything? Is the mind, is that the correct understanding?
In the presence of consciousness, the mind is experiencing. So what's making the mind experience? The presence of consciousness. Can I know that consciousness? Not as an object. It's always the subject. The fact that there is a mind experiencing implies the presence of consciousness. Do I have to know that consciousness? No. Cognitively, it must be there. I'll give you an example. Does the eye have to see itself to know that it exists? No. The fact that seeing is going on implies the presence of the eye. So this means the fact that there is a experiencing mind implies the presence of consciousness. Do I have to look for that consciousness? Not at all. So verse says avinashi. So now it's talking about the nature of Atman, and it says it's indestructible. Avinashi. So again, destruction belongs to the forms, to the names, to the experiences, to the body, to your thoughts, to your emotions, to your life, to your ideas about yourself. For example, you had a certain idea about who you were, who this I was, maybe 5 years ago. Is that the same today? No. So even the sense of self, even the ahamkara, the sense of self, who I thought I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, is very different than the sense of self, who I think who I am right now. So that sense of self is called the ahamkara, the ego. But there is a consciousness throughout that. There is an awareful being 5 years ago, and there's an awareful being right now. So therefore, then the verse continues, it says, this Atma does not undergo these changes, does not have opinions about itself. It is Yena Sarvam Idam Tatam. It is that which pervades this entire world. That means the whole world is pervaded by this Sat. So this means there is no such thing as pockets of consciousness. Like you are one pocket of consciousness, I'm one pocket of consciousness. It is one undivided whole. And what is one undivided whole in Sanskrit? Anantam. So what kind of existence awareness is it? It is Anantam. It is Sat-Chit-Anandam. What does Anantam means? It means that you cannot contain this final building block from which everything else comes. You cannot contain it to any one particular form. Because the moment you do, it means it's now within space. It is the truth of space. It is the truth of time. It is the truth of intelligence. It's the truth of everything. It has no boundaries. It doesn't begin, nor does it end. It doesn't start, nor does it end. It's not divided by anything. Because it's not divided, it is therefore limitless. It is Anantam. Therefore, now, where is this limitless reality, which is Sat and Chit? Where is it? Simple question. Where is it? For you?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Good. Okay. It is in and through everything. Well, if it's in and through everything, then why do we, in the spiritual world, right, have this notion that it's somewhere else? This is so common. Like it's parked somewhere else. I have to go and meet. The pot has to go and shake hands with the clay. It has to meet the clay. Why is this? Because this notion of difference is so ingrained that, like I said, the frog wants to go back down into its little well because it's been there for how long? Beginningless time. So can you expect the frog to be comfortable with advaitam overnight? Absolutely not. So this is the idea. And this Sat and Chit, which is limitless, because it's in and through everything, means you will never come to experience it because it is already the truth of everything. The only way you experience something is if it wasn't there before, and now for the first time it's been produced, it's been made, and it's here and now. I want you to really think about this, what it means to say that consciousness is already attained. Are you going to attain consciousness tomorrow? It is in Sanskrit called praptasya prapti. It's already attained. This means I'm not going, and look at this. Suppose you want enlightenment or moksha to be an experience. What would that imply? That would imply the ending of you right now. Then who would want moksha? Who wants to go out of existence? That means this person has to go out of existence and some other person is going to benefit. I'm not going to benefit because I'm going to go out of existence. I'm going to give way to some enlightened person. But then what about me? You see why you can't think like that? In other words, to think that I'm going to gain some new experience means it's going to be the ending of this small individual. Oh, this small individual is going to be no more, and some different big individual is going to be there. Who's going to pursue moksha? So I want to stress this. Moksha is not about ending of anything. It is simply putting things in the right place. That this person who I thought I was, this small person, is not isolated just to this, but is actually, this awareful being is the truth of the whole universe, in whom these forms are coming and going, coming and going. So how is the wave supposed to now experience something new? It implies it's going to get some different kind of water onto itself. Does this make sense? It implies that you, the awareful being, will suddenly be differently aware tomorrow. Aware of what? Mithya. So nothing's going to change. You see this? So the person wants enlightenment to be mithya. They want to experience something new. Something that's not here now, but will be there tomorrow. Therefore, moksha is not about suddenly feeling bigger or, more lighter. All of these terms that you've heard before, just putting things in the right place. What I was seeking, I already am. And how is it that I already am? It's evident to me. That means I will never be more I am tomorrow than I am right now. You will never be more aware than you are aware right now. Think about this. How are you going to be more aware? Aware of what? Of your mind? What does the mind have to do with awareness?
I had a fundamental question. You have used two words for consciousness, Sat-Chit.
Yeah.
Why two words? Why not have only one word for it?
Good, because they are there to help you connect and relate to this reality. In other words, let's make it personal. You exist, you know you exist. And what kind of an existent being are you? You are an awareful existent being. So what kind of a Sat are you? You are a Chit Sat. You are an awareful existence. So not only are you awareful, but just the fact that you're aware implies you exist. Okay, so there are simply words to help you connect to this reality, which is ever true. If I just say awareness, you're going to say, okay, that's good, but what else do you have? Then I'm going to say, well, it is non-changing. It is nirvikara. I'm going to say, nirvikalpa. I'm going to say all these different words. And all of these words are going to help you connect deeper to what you are. So this is why. It's like the sun. If I want to show you the sun suppose you've never seen the sun. And suppose I use only one word to show you the sun. And I say round. Are you going to connect? Are you going to what are you going to say if I say round? Well, there's many round things. What? The clock on the wall? No. I have to give you one more word. I have to say round sky. Moon? I have to give you one more word. Round, sky, bright. Sun. So I have to give you three words to point to what I really wanted you to understand. This is why.
Thank you.
So the rishis have figured out the three closest words that we have to point to who you are is existence. You're an existent. You know that you exist and you are awareful. And this existence, awareful being, it is not just some existent, awareful being isolated to one single form. It is what kind? What nature is it? Not kind, what nature? It is anantam. It is limitless. It is everywhere. Now, the common question sometimes is, and we'll stop with this, is then because the mind is been operating from its old paradigm of thinking it's an individual, what happens is it asks, how do I use this? Like a wave asks, how do I use this to benefit me? Like, how do I use this knowledge that I'm the water to benefit me, the small wave, to make myself feel bigger? You see what's happening? So this means the mind is still operating from its old paradigm. It hasn't quite found this relevant to itself. So it's still operating as a single wave, and it goes, oh, okay, so I am the water. Okay, interesting. How do I use this concept, this idea that everything is water, that everything is consciousness? How do I use this to benefit me, the small individual? So it becomes one more title to add onto the individual. This is the only time when you cannot think like that. Everything else until moksha was used to help the individual become a little bit bigger, more confident, more healthier, more, more analytical. The only time when you can no longer think like this is when it comes to understanding yourself as the whole, as one being from which everything arises. This is the time when I have to say, what are the implications of this statement that I am not bound to this body? Rather than saying, how can I use this to be more loving for myself, more calmer, more kind of patient, to live this, dharma. How do I? The only time when you cannot say this is when it comes to moksha, because dharma, being more patient, being more loving, that has a place for the jiva. And that is to be exercised, that is to be practiced. But at the same time, when it comes to self-inquiry, the whole paradigm changes. Then I no longer cannot think like jiva. I have to, for a moment, think and understand what are the implications that something about me is the witness to these experiences. What is it? Do I connect? Is my buddhi connecting to that knowledge? Therefore, like this, as I said, the scriptures interchange between comfort, discomfort. Because when I mention versus like 16, some of us, it's over our head. It's too much. And then Krishna very quickly drops it back down to earth. Because why? The mind's still thinking from a standpoint of one individual, and which is fine. So give yourself some patience. No need to fear, or suppose you say, I'm not connecting to this. It's fine. This is how the Bhagavad Gita works. And one more question for you. What does the wave have to do? Does the wave have to give up its waveness to know that it's the water?
No.
No, no. How does the wave connect with the water? Would someone like to answer this?
Cognitively.
Cognitively. So the wave simply brings in what it's been all along, and you have to mention that which it is by stating there is something about you which is awareful, which witnesses all changes, and that which witnesses changes, which is awareful, is the real you. That much I am fine. I don't have to get rid of the person. I don't have to run away from the person. I don't have to divorce. I don't have to suddenly end all my relationships. None of that has anything to do with anything. It's just bringing in one more reality to it. Okay? So this means it's about perspective. You're putting things in the right perspective. It's never been about getting rid of the ego, getting rid of the jiva, running away. Nothing. All of this is just beginner spirituality. When you come to Vedanta, we say it's about bringing out what's already there, because everything is already perfect. Only the mind makes it not perfect. And the mind that makes it not perfect has to say, get rid of this, destroy the ego, get rid of that. All that is here is Ishvara, one reality manifesting as all this. Who am I to get rid of things? Who's doing the getting rid of things? One individual. Does reality care that you got rid of anything? Reality still keeps on being reality. My only job is to align my mind to the reality. That's what Vedanta is. Namadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.